Three, two, one, and we're live. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Village Made Podcast. My name is Mavel Heimuli, and if this is your first time joining us, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Also, if you're returning, thanks again. It's a pleasure to have you back. And also, don't forget to check us out at c4designs.com. Check out the merch that we have on sale, and also don't forget to use the code VMP15 for 15% off your discount. 15% discount off your purchase. But today we have an exciting episode for you guys. Andria, thank you for stopping by and thank you for your time. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Man, this is for me, this is exciting because just knowing who you are, Andria Tupola, from running in Hawaii for governor and to have you here in Utah with us. It's, just for me, I really appreciate it and just enjoy, listening to your story, to share your story and, just owning our stories because our stories are powerful. And if it can help somebody else, I'm not saying that you are the final product, but I'm just saying that with the person that you've become today, I'm sure your story can help someone. And so, also, just sharing with you that we, with your husband, we were, born and raised in the same ward with him and his dad was our bishop. So, it's a pleasure to have you, but, let's just get straight into this with, the story of your name. Who named you and the meaning of your last names? I guess you can do your maiden name and then also your married name.
Okay. My name is Andria Pilialoha Langimanino Uale Tupola. So my first name, Andria, was given to me by my mom and dad. They didn't say anything besides just they wanted to give me a name that was different. So the spelling of my name is Andria. I've met maybe one person or two that have the same spelling. Pilialoha is the same middle name as my mother's sister. And in Hawaiian, it's translated to like friendship. Pili is just when you're close with someone and aloha is love. And then Langimanino is clear heavens. I just recently found out, maybe last year, I asked my mom where she got that name. I know I should have probably asked her a long time ago, but I was born in Kuku Hospital. And she told me the story about when I was born. And I wasn't like super happy about this story, but I guess there was a picture on the wall at Kuku Hospital of like clear heavens. And that's how I got Langimanino. So Samoan, I'm half Samoan, and so that's my Samoan middle name. And then Uale is my father's last name. He's from Laie. And then Tupola is my husband's last name, and he is from Kuku.
Nice. And with Uale or Tupola, do you know if there's meanings to that name or is it just a name?
From what I know, Uale was actually the first name of a great-great-grandfather, but that is actually my father's adopted last name. So his father, James Amilale Uale, was adopted into the Uale family, but he was actually the son of Pita Anai. So I don't know if you know like Famika or Famika and Peter were brothers and they came from Samoa. So from what I understand, he came later. One of the older brothers came, never went back to Samoa. So then the mom sent the brothers and said, hey, get your brothers, come home. No one went back. Right. They all lived in Laie. So I do believe the way the story went was that he and his wife were good friends with James Amilale Uale and Elizabeth Crichton. That's my dad's adopted parents, and they couldn't have children. And so when they had my grandfather, then he was raised with them. But he did grow up with the Anais. So still but almost like cousins, even though they were really like brothers and sisters. Right. So I think the Uale last name, definitely love that family. They did raise my grandfather. And then the Anai family is still a big part of our backstory. And then I don't know too much about the Tupola last name. You can ask Tavo.
Right. That's interesting that you said that the Uale was a first name. There's been a few people on the podcast that have mentioned that their last name was a first name at some point, but just somehow it just ended up being a last name. So I think that's kind of cool. And yeah, that's cool that you have ties to Laie. I didn't know that,
Oh yes, yeah.
And so that's the village that I'm from, or and then also your husband. So that's cool. I think you kind of mentioned already the migration, from Samoa, and then your Hawaiian side. Do you know what villages or where on the islands they're from?
Oh yeah, yes. So her mother is Leilani Bertelman. The Bertelman family started off in Ka'u on the Big Island, and then later, after Godfrey, who was my great-grandfather, passed away. So when my grandmother, Leilani Bertelman, was born, he died the same year.
Wow.
And she was adopted to his sister. So she never grew up with the Bertelman family. In fact, when I was running for governor, that was the first time I had ever met the Bertelmans. So I was campaigning in Waimea, and everyone's like, "Hey, aren't you a Bertelman?" And like, I don't know anything about the family. "Oh, that's your auntie, that's your uncle." And like, I never know how to act. I was just like, "Oh, who, what?"
Right,
and not knowing that it was my mom's first cousin, that it was my grandma's sister. So I had a meet and greet in Waimea, and this lady walked in, and I just like, as soon as I saw her, I just started crying because I knew exactly who she was. She's my grandma's sister. She looked just like her. She walks in, "Do you know who I am?" I was like, whoa. I was like, "I think I know who you are. You must be Bertha." She's like, "I'm your grandma's sister." I was like, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm 37 years old. I'm meeting my grandma's sister for the first time. I'm campaigning for governor of Hawaii, and I'm just like crying because I'm like, "You look just like my grandma." So the Bertelmans currently live in the Waimea area. A lot of they live in the homestead. My mother's father is Edmund Kealoha Parker. So the Parkers hail from Waimea as well.
Yeah.
Parker Ranch. So originally the Parker line is a Kamehameha line. So King Kamehameha is my 8th great grandfather. So they started off in Kohala, and then the Parkers kind of migrated down into the Waimea area. So my grandfather is, one of 6, I forget, but his sister used to live right here in Orem. We have a book called the Roots and Branches book, and she wrote out all our genealogy, even back to Lehi Nephi. She passed away over here. Her name is Eva, and my grandfather was the one that published that book, and that book is used by Hawaiians all throughout Hawaii, even people who I run into on a daily basis. Like, they'll ask me, "Are you in the Roots and Branches book?" I'm like, "Oh, my grandpa published it." "What? We're related." And you can find the page and you can figure out how you're related.
Wow,
so
that's so cool.
That's Parkers, that's Bertelmans. We're related to the Lindsays, the Titcombs. The book, it says it has all the seals of all the families and then how we're related.
Jeez, that's interesting. That's cool. And I'm sure that's a good posterity, something to pass on to your kids as well. They come from amazing, great heritages. So you mentioned that you were born in Koku Hospital.
I was.
So were you raised in Koku, or where were you raised?
So my father started off going to law school, and we lived in Makiki. So at the time, he was still working for PCC.
Oh, wow.
So my mom and dad worked for PCC when they were going to BYU Hawaii. So he was working at the Waikiki office and going to school at UH. He got his law degree from the Richardson School of Law. And we lived in Makiki from the time I was born till about 5, and then we moved to Hawaii Kai. So the only reason we went back to Kahuku when my mom gave birth to me is because that was the doctor who delivered my older brother when they were at BYU, and she wanted to use the same doctor. So
nice.
They were living in Makiki, and then when she started to have contractions, they went to Laie, waited at my grandma's house until she was ready, and then I was born in Kahuku.
Nice.
Behind my husband's house.
Right? And for you, what was childhood like in Makiki?
I don't remember too much about it. I do remember a few families that we were good friends with. And then right when maybe a year before I started school, my parents ended up buying a house in Hawaii Kai. My mother's father wanted them to live in a house where they could raise us. And so he helped my parents with the down payment. They came, and we didn't know too much about Hawaii Kai. At that time, Hawaii Kai was really new, actually, just a newly developed area.
Right.
And so I just, grew up in Hawaii Kai, where there's not a lot of Samoans.
So I guess what was childhood like there without a lot of Samoans?
I don't know. I loved it. I still love Hawaii Kai to this day. My mom and dad still live in the same house. I went to Kamehameha in 9th grade, and I remember feeling like a little, not comfortable, but I felt a little more interested in my culture, because now all of a sudden there's more people that look like me and that may be related to me. And then it kind of expanded from there. Like, I got into BYU Provo, but then I started working in the summers at PCC because my grandparents were still living in Laie. And I started to learn more about the culture because I danced canoe show, I danced night show, and then so I danced like the Tofi Sa for night show, and then I danced Hamata, which is Hawaii Maori Tahiti, for canoe show. I did photo poly, and so little by little I started to get to know my culture as I was older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess when you were at CAM and you kind of mentioned you kind of saw more people that were like you, or that were more similar to you. What was that like for you, like finding your identity, maybe your cultural identity? And then you mentioned also when you were older that you kind of learned the culture more. Was that a difficult, trying to find that identity?
I felt like I always identified more as a Samoan, and it's not because I'm not proud of all my cultures or my heritage. We just grew up a lot with my grandma and grandpa in Laie. So my mom's parents lived in LA. So my grandfather, Ed Parker, he's the grandmaster of Kempo karate. So he moved to Los Angeles after he graduated from BYU Provo with a psychology degree to teach karate for the movies. So he was doing like a kata seminar, like basically doing a demonstration of karate, and Elvis Presley walked in. And he talked to him a little bit. Elvis asked if my grandfather could train him, and my grandfather's like, oh, I'm so busy. Like, his karate business is really taking off. And he was also helping Bruce Lee, who at the time was trying to do the Green Hornet. And back then, like, karate in the movies was like foreign. People were like, what? Like, so my grandfather was in the Pink Panther, and he was kind of like breaking into that scene. And so my mother's family, although they're half Hawaiian, they're from California, if that makes sense. So
Right.
so I didn't know too much about the language, the culture. So when I went to Kamehameha, I started to take Hawaiian as a language. So I learned a little. And then, of course, they have a few cultural things you learn. But I had grown up in Laie. So, like, we went to, funerals, whatever, Fa'asamoa stuff. So I felt like when I went to Kamehameha, it was a little hard because I still identified strongly as Samoan, right? So I was always trying to wear, like, Samoan stuff to school and, like, look apart from, oh, I'm Samoan or whatever it is.
Right.
And there's only two others. One was Kamuela Unga. He's my classmate. And then there was only one other Samoan, Chance Williams. And we were the three ones. Oh, Jeanette Te'o was in our class. So four of us were Samoan in our class. But it wasn't hard. It was just interesting because it was the first time that I was like, wait, like, I'm Hawaiian, but I'm Samoan, but like, what do I do? I don't even know how to speak Hawaiian, and I don't even really know like Samoan besides I have Samoan clothes. So it was a good experience.
And then I guess now that you mentioned being in Laie a lot, what were some of your favorite memories being around Laie, I guess, with other childhood kids, or people around you?
So I grew up across the street from like the Sikas, right? So Braden guys, Kabehi, like Brennan, those guys were always playing at my grandma's house. Like, so we'd play volleyball. Like Ma'afu used to come over.
Oh, nice.
And like Ashton guys used to come over. Kapu'u them used to come over. We'd play volleyball in the yard in my grandparents' house. It was just like home.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing different. And in fact, when I married Tavo, it was just so easy because it just felt like home. Because I go Laie all the time.
Right.
We were there for Thanksgiving. We were there for Easter. We were there because, again, my mother's family is in LA. So if they're in LA and we live in Hawaii, the people we're with the most are the ones who live near us. So every holiday was in Laie. We'd go once a year to California to see my mom's family, and then that was about it. So
nice. And excuse me. Just talking about just the rich legacy that you have in your family, thinking about the legacy, that you want to leave for your kids, or, just, I feel like generationally everyone does the best they can, or, does everything they can so that they can leave a rich legacy, I think for you, what would you like? And like I mentioned before, that you're still in the process of creating that legacy, but I guess up to this point, or what have you felt like you want your legacy to be?
I definitely want to leave a legacy of public service. I don't think I always intended to enter politics, but I guess now that I am, I realize that it's almost like a calling for me. I feel committed to the people that I serve. I feel dedicated to the cause that I'm waging, and I feel like my children watch me and they see that, some of the stuff I do is just because, and not because I'm elected or whatever. I just try to do what I think the community needs or what the people need. So I hope that, my kids grow up and my posterity grows to know that I was somebody that served the people of Hawaii and the people in my community.
Wow, that's amazing. And I guess because with the field or with the things that you're doing now, was there ever, because of your father, he was you said he went to law school and he was a judge. Was there ever pressure to maybe like do well in education, or was education taught like something like a big push in the home for you guys?
So my parents both grew up out of Hawaii. So my mom grew up in Pasadena. My dad was born in Salt Lake City. He was raised in Texas, Okinawa, and Louisiana. My grandfather was in the Army. So my parents are very much overachievers. They're very much like achieve the highest level possible, right? So my mom has a doctorate degree. My father is a judge.
Wow.
And so I am the only girl in my family. I have 3 brothers. And like getting less than an A was not an option. My parents hold me to a very, very high standard, much higher than my brothers. And so when I was growing up, it wasn't something I fought against. It was just something that I accepted, that my parents expected a lot out of me. And my mom told me that from the very beginning.
Nice.
I was born 17 days early, I think. But she said that when she was at the hospital, that after that day and moving forward, she's like, you have been the same ever since you were born. You always show up early. She's like, you're ahead. You're always, in front of the people who are your age. So I started school when I was 5. I could read at the age of 4. I could play piano at 4. I mean, I play flute. Like I got early acceptance into Kamehameha as well as BYU.
Wow.
So like all of that was kind of just like part of who I became, is like somebody that tries to achieve and get, like a high, live my full potential. And so I think for me, education is just like a way of life. So when I went to BYU, it was just normal, because holy smokes, people at BYU, like they're way overachievers. Like I thought I was like pretty awesome in Hawaii. I come to BYU Provo, I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone's a prodigy here. Like everyone's been playing piano since they were 2. And so it was difficult. It's difficult to compete at BYU because it's academically rigorous, but it helped me to know that I could actually achieve that level and more. I ran for student government at BYU. I was the student body vice president. And I remember kids from Hawaii were like, oh my gosh, like you represent this school, you're from Hawaii. And I was thinking like, smakain. But, when you think about it, there's 33,000 students, and to be a standout among that from a small place, like it's cool. So
yeah. With, I guess now we're going into, with what you're doing now, I know you mentioned that you weren't always intending to work in the public space. Do you remember what you wanted to be? I guess like when you were going to school at BYU, what you wanted to be, what your dream job was, I guess?
I have 2, almost 3 degrees in music. So I'm finishing my doctorate in music education this year. And I've just always wanted to be a music teacher. So I graduated from BYU with a music degree. I got my master's from UH. I started teaching at Leeward Community College. I taught at UH West Oahu. Okay. And my idea was to just be a professor. Like, I love music. I love choir. So I remember when I got the job out of finishing my master's, I thought, like, this is it. Like, I'm arriving. Like, everything I ever wanted to be is happening. And I don't know, in 2014, actually, it wasn't it was 2010. I started to just get this feeling like there's like this shift happening in the world. And, I started my mission in Venezuela the year before I graduated from BYU, so 2003 to 2004. And I learned so much about philosophies of government, so much to the point that when I got home from my mission, my eyes were very open. I was very aware of what type of policies people were talking about, because Venezuela is super political.
Right.
And so when I got back to the US from my mission, I remember thinking like, be grateful for everything you have. You live in a country that allows you to vote. You live in a country that allows you to run for office, which I never wanted to run for office. I just thought, be helpful. Like the thought in my mind was like, be a good volunteer, help people who are doing good causes, because you're supposed to be a music teacher. So like, I just did my music teacher thing, and so it just was, in 2010, I had that feeling. In 2012, I helped campaign for a presidential candidate. That person lost. And then in 2013, I got this really strong impression that I was supposed to run for office.
Right.
My husband was totally against it. He was so angry about it. and it took us a while. And I didn't run till 2014. So
Okay. Sorry, before we get into the office that you're running for and the different things that you're running in, let's talk about your music a little bit. What were your like early childhood memories of music, I guess, and was that a passion for you, or is it still a passion, I guess?
yeah. My mom's a music teacher,
Okay.
so she teaches piano out of our home. She teaches music at like a local high school at Lelehua. And I just grew up in choir. So we are choir people. My mom does the Honolulu Christmas choir for the stake. And from the age of 4, I was playing piano. If my mom was teaching piano and we weren't supposed to like play, or she would put earphones on me and my older brother, and we would sit so she could watch us, and we would listen to Michael Jackson. So she always had Michael Jackson playing. So we would listen to it, and like we love Michael Jackson. And my brother kind of got into the hip hop scene when he was like middle school, high school age. So I remember knowing a lot about that. Like he had like this thing on his wall, and he was like, "Who's this?" I was like, "RZA, GZA, Ghostface Killer." Like he was very much into like freestyling and that whole thing. And I wasn't, but I respected my brother's like talent. My brother's super talented. He's a DJ, and so is my little brother. And so it was just always just a part of our life, like just music and singing and dancing and choir. So I took ballet. I was in gymnastics. I was in Drill Team Hawaii. I did hula, like you name it, I was doing it. My mom is an artsy person. So art and like that love for art is like still in me a lot. Like I love to create.
Now that you mentioned it, with like the Anai family, being a really a sport, into athletics, was athletics ever pushed on you, or was it just mentioned, or like for you to just to explore your different talents or explore different things, like you said, with dance and music? And so how was that?
Good. I played basketball in high school. It was good. I mean, I have all brothers, so you can probably imagine, like, I'm not the girl that's wearing a dress. Like, I'm the girl that's playing basketball in a dress after the baptism, and people are like, "Andrew, you're supposed to." And I'm like, I got to play basketball. So I loved basketball. We played volleyball a lot at the chapel, and my brothers played. So my little brother Travis played for BYU Provo. My husband played at the University of Utah. So sports, I mean, is just, I guess, natural. We love that.
Right.
In addition to music.
So how does that work in the family when Utah and BYU plays? Because you go to, you went to BYU and then your husband at Utah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was fine.
Yeah.
I know in Utah it's kind of a thing, but
it's
in our family we're like fans of people.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure people have their teams. I don't have like a team per se. I just am a fan of like people. Like if my cousin's playing, or if my husband, and obviously if your husband's playing for the University of Utah, like you're a fan, right? Yep. It's not like it's my second cousin. It's my husband who's like the team captain. Like I'm not gonna like, I went to BYU. Like, yes, I went to BYU, and I'm super proud that I went there. Super grateful for my education. My husband plays for the University of Utah. I cheer for him. I'm happy that he went there. He got a great education. He had a great experience.
Yeah. I like that perspective. A lot of people think BYU and Utah. I guess, in Utah it's a big thing, but in your family, you you guys cheer for each other, I guess, or, and so I think that's cool. And continuing on with music, who are your like musical? I think you mentioned Michael Jackson. Do you have other people that you like looked up to in music?
I mean, I just like people who can sing and play. Like I love playing the piano and singing. So of course Alicia Keys is like, an option. We love Stevie Wonder. Like we love all his music. Lately is like one of our favorite songs as a family. I don't know. I'm a fan of like many different types of music. I study classical music at BYU, so I can sing opera in Italian, German, French. People trip out. They're like, but I went to BYU. Yeah. That's the kind of music they teach. So
nice. And now that you have kids of your own, is that something that you pass on to them? Your love for music?
Yeah, so my daughters went to Hawaiian immersion. So my little daughter, my youngest, went to Puranaleo. So she's been speaking Hawaiian since she was 3. Wow. My other daughter started an immersion at 1st grade. So naturally with Hawaiian immersion, you're always doing cultural singing, dancing, like creating, making. So to complete your elementary school education, you have to write your own song from where you're from. Wow. You have to play it and sing it. You have to hakumele, meaning like you got to write the song. And then you got to create it in such a way, it was an interesting interesting concept to me because as a music teacher, like I want to assist my children, but I wasn't allowed to help them with their project because that was their graduation. I guess, what is the word in English? Capstone. Yeah, they have to present it on their own. So you cannot assist them. So they sing their song and then they do their maukuauhau, which is their genealogy. So you have to do 3 generations back on your mom's side, 3 generations back on your dad's side, and you have to recite it from memory. So I feel like for my daughters, I'm grateful they were able to be in Kaiapuni because naturally music became a part of who they were. They can both play ukulele, they can both play piano, they can both sing. So I don't feel like I have to push it on them per se because it's just around them.
Yeah. And that just reminds me how you mentioned earlier with Braden being your neighbor or across the street from you, from your grandma's house. I had Jolene Kanahele on the podcast, and just knowing her background, it's just interesting that you guys are growing you were raised across the street from her, and so just being musically talented,
Yeah, they are so talented.
Yeah. And so just with you just mentioning the different like talents that you have in singing German and French, you know what I mean? Like, wow, that's cool. That maybe a little rubbed off on you, or you know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, just you like pursuing, music because that's something that you're passionate about. I think that's cool.
Well, and it was on both sides. So my grandfather, my dad's dad, Jack Uwale, he was the manager at the night show at PCC.
Oh, okay.
And he actually was in the army as a band person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he plays like the tuba and I don't know what else, but yeah, music was all over both sides. And my mom and dad actually met at it was called what is it called? Anyways, it was a dancing and singing group at BYU Hawaii, and my mom and dad met there. My dad was the lead singer, my mom was the lead choreographer.
Okay.
Something Hawaii. Anyways, but yeah, so I think that's that. Even though my dad pursued law, music was also a huge part of his life.
So now I guess moving on to, with the running for governor and the different the offices that you're running in, I guess just you mentioned that was it 2013 that you kind of felt the shift in the world, or a shift that
it was like in 2010.
2010, yeah. Can you talk a little more about that shift and like how did coming about with you, or like you putting yourself out there? I know you mentioned that your husband was against it. Can you talk about that and how you were like, or what was that moment when you wanted to change that?
Yeah, I would say that it was a collection of moments.
Okay.
In 2010, I saw a lot of different policies being introduced that looked like what had happened in Venezuela. So when I lived there, Hugo Chavez was the president. They practiced socialism there. And I saw how they gave free housing, free education, free medical to the lowest socioeconomic class. Many of the people we were teaching were living completely off the government. And I didn't know, because I was so young, I didn't know that any different. I was just like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, you guys are, oh, okay.
Right.
And so I realized, while I was living there, that it really took away that incentive to work, because why work when you can get everything for free? And even why try when the harder you work, the more it gets taken from you. The highest socioeconomic class gets heavily taxed so that they can pay for the things that they give for free. And so in 2010, I saw some discussions going throughout the United States about policies that were similar.
Right.
And I'm like not a political person, but I was like, whoa, like I seen that before. So I just was a little aware, and I was like, okay, like I don't think I'll ever be for that type of society because I've lived through it. And so I just decided to volunteer. So I was like, okay, well, my best idea is to volunteer for somebody that's running for office that believes in what I believe in, which is empowerment, self-reliance, less government, less taxes, like just more autonomy, more community empowerment, less people who live miles and miles away making decisions for small little communities.
Right.
Because like when I lived in Venezuela, it was just sad to me because I lived in very, very, very humble places, and man, just the government was everywhere. I mean, they would have riots. Everyone carries guns there. I was just not used to that kind of living, and the lawlessness that happens there because of people feeling like anything goes. I was concerned that, we live in a place where there is order. There is probably some unrest about certain freedoms, but guess what? You can vote about it. You can run for office. You can disagree. You can show up at a hearing and testify. Like, you can't do that stuff in Venezuela.
Right.
Like, you don't like it? Like, tough beans. Like, good luck. Like, stay in your house or just don't complain too loud. And so I think that in 2010, like, I volunteered, or 2012, I volunteered. I tried, the person I'm helping, they lose. And like, I don't know, like, I didn't feel discouraged because I was like, what else is there to do? There's still got to be like good people to help. And so then right after that election, I remember people were like, oh, you should run for office. And I was like, what is that? The PTA? Like,
right.
What are we talking about? My kids were 2 and 3. So I was like, I shouldn't be running for office. Like, I'm a music professor. Like, this doesn't sound right. So then the following year in 2013, I had attended various like events, and more people talked to me about it everywhere I went. Kind of became a joke because I was like, is this for real? Like, this cannot be for real. There's got to be people more qualified than me to do this. Like, I don't even have any background in this. And in fact, Mike Lee, who's a senator, is he a senator here? Anyways, he came to Hawaii to speak, and he was talking, and he went to BYU too. So there were certain things that Mike said that, I agreed with, and I was like, But in my head, I thought, why do I need to hear this? Like, I'm not running for office.
Right.
And I kept praying about it because it did seem like every place I went to, it's almost like there was messages for me there. And I was like, is that for me? And of course, a lot of people knew my father. Everywhere I went, oh my gosh, Judge Uwale's daughter's here. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not here to do anything. I'm just here to listen. And so in 2013, somebody approached me at a dinner and said, who are you? And I was like, oh. Told him my name. Where do you live? And at the time, me and Tavo had just bought a house in Waianae, so we were living on the west side. And I said, oh, I live in Waianae. And, where did you graduate from? Like, did you serve a mission? Did you, like, all these questions. And I was like, what do you want? Like, what is it that you need from me? I think you should run for office. I was like, and I was just about to crack my next joke when I just got this really strong impression, like, and the impression didn't say to run for office. The impression said, shut your mouth. The impression was, be quiet. So I didn't talk, and then I listened to what the person said, and I don't know, it came really, really strong. And then I drove home that night, and I kept getting that impression, like, you need to do it now. And I was like, do what? Like, run for office? So I went home, I told Tavo, hey, some people are asking me again about running for office. He's like, oh, so did you tell everybody no? I was like, I told this one guy maybe. What? You told him maybe? Nobody's running for office in our house. Like, you have my last name. He's like, no, we don't do those kind of things.
Right.
Like, you don't put yourself out there like that. Like, we just gonna be quiet and stay in our house. And I was like, take it easy. I was like, say a prayer, figure out if we're supposed to do this, because this is not like a thing I necessarily want to do. It's a thing that I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So I need you to understand that, and I need you to like support me through that. He's like, nah. He's like, there's some things you don't need to pray about. This is one of them. I was like, you're so stubborn. So Mother's Day 2013, we sit down, we have dinner. Tavo tells me, I talked to my supervisors, I talked to my union president and da-da-da-da-da about your little idea. I was like, and what? Everyone thinks it's a good idea. I was like, what do you think? He's like, you're just going to do what you want anyways. I was like, I know. But will you support me through that? And he was like, like he was like, fine. And, it took him a while because, right after that, it wasn't like he was like, okay, what does this take? He was like, man, just do your own thing. And so that was a year before I ran. That was in 2013. So I just started to prepare myself, and I thought, okay, like, I'll run for State House rep. Like, at the time, I didn't even know what that was. I was like, what is that? They're like, oh, you represent this area. I was like, okay, what do I do? They're like, you raise money and then you talk to people. So I was like, I went on a mission. Like, I know how to talk to people. Yeah. Easy. They're like, what about raising money? I was like, I never did that, but it can't be that hard. Right. I can raise money. And then they're like, where are you from? I was like, I'm from Hawaii Kai. They're like, you're going to lose. You're running in Waianae. Nobody likes people from Hawaii Kai. I was like, okay. So what party are you gonna run as? Like, I'm gonna run as a Republican. Oh, you're gonna lose. Everybody in Hawaii don't like those people. Oh, okay. And what about your background? I was like, well, I'm a music teacher. Oh, you don't have a law degree? I was like, oh no. They're like, oh, you're gonna lose. I was like, all right, well, let's get started. I was like,
challenge accepted,
yeah,
right?
Let's do this. So I didn't think too much of it besides just try your best, work really hard, stay organized. And I didn't have a campaign manager and I didn't have people like mentoring me. I just thought, just win, you know? And I won my first time, and I raised like $56,000. My first time I won by like 54%. And I don't know, I just thought, okay, well, I did it, you know? And then I went to the state capitol and I was like, okay, this is just my mindset. I'm just gonna go in here and take over. So like I go into the capitol, like I'm just gonna like take over the place. Oh, what a rude awakening. Like, I was not ready for that. I mean, it's just so many people with different egos and agendas, and they weren't very nice to me. And I was like, why is everyone not nice? I was like, I went from this like beautiful world of music to people who are like, ah. So yeah, it wasn't as easy as I thought. So then I decided, like, you know, try my best, run for re-election. I get re-elected by a lot. I work hard for my community a lot. And then I think, how am I as an individual going to make this difference that Hawaii needs? Like, we need more people, you know? So I started running candidate academies. I started helping people. And then I thought, if I want people to do hard stuff, I need to model the way. So if I don't think that there's somebody running that can adequately represent our state, then I should do it. Okay, I'm sure that this is not how normal people come to the conclusion to run for governor. But in my mind, it was simple enough. I don't like the people leading our state. I won a couple times. Why not go for the gusto? Like, I don't know. So I'm 37. I run for governor. I'm just like, just give it. Let's go. Let's do it. And it was such a great experience. Yeah, it's just awesome.
And then just in you sharing that, man, I believe that just sometimes in life, you know, you just gotta go, you know, and the things that you don't know, you'll figure it out, you know. And so just like sometimes I also believe also that depending if you know, so if you know something, or if you're trying to get into something and you know too much, or there's too much information given you, like then you start picking at, you know, and then being like, oh, this needs to be perfect, or something needs, you know, like you wait for the right time or wait for everything to be perfect for you to do something. Whereas in your case, I feel like the less you knew, the better it was, because you just like rush it, you know what I mean? Like, oh, we figure it out. And so I feel like that's a cool part of your story, you know, that no matter what happened, you know, we'll figure it out along the way. And sometimes that's just how, you know, you need to go into these things that you have nothing, you don't know anything about. It's just, we'll figure it out, you know. And so can you talk about, because you talked about you need more people, you know, you needing people to help you and for you to fulfill, you know, this purpose or that thing that you felt that you needed to, just the support, I guess, that you got when you were running for governor. Because I seen the night of the election, you guys had a big dance party after you did the hula, you know what I mean? And just like everyone was around, and just the support that you got. And is it the support building, you know, in Hawaii, and just how that it came about, I guess?
Yeah. You know, I didn't think too hard about whether or not I knew enough people. I just knew that the reason why I was running and my message was the message that needed to be said. Like, I knew that Hawaii needed a leader that was going to make sure that more local families could afford to live there. That was my message. And my goal, sure, was to win, but my goal was to become the governor. Okay, that's like different than winning the race, because when you become the governor, you become the leader Hawaii needs. So you become the person that people trust. You become the person that has the right skill set, the right people surrounding you, right? And I knew that I was young. I knew I had a lot to learn, but I can only become that person if I try, you know, if I put myself out there. And so everywhere I went, I was trying to be that person. I was trying to, okay, what do I have to learn? You know, what voices do I have to listen to? What issues do I have to resolve? And so the more I kept that mindset and I went around to the different places in Hawaii, the more that like rural areas like Kahuku, Haula, Waianae, Maui, Kauai, like these areas, like I was like their person, you know, because I'm like for the underdog. I'm like the outsider, right? So my message resonates with communities who are underserved. So when we ended the night of the governor's race, like the precinct that voted the most for me, which was 77%, I won with 77% in this little community area, Kahuku. So everyone thought it was going to be Waianae because I had represented the area. And granted, I did win that area. I didn't win it by 77%. I won it by more than 50. But from Kaena Point in the west side all the way through Eva Beach, I won all those areas. I won a couple of the homesteads. So in my mind, I could tell where my message was resonating. I could tell where it was saturating. And, you know, Kahuku was just like... and I honestly don't want to take any credit for it. Like, I know my last name is Tupola. Yeah. So I know that Tavo played a big role in just being able to have that name recognition there. But, you know, the support, the love, the amount of people that were able to come out and support. I mean, granted, we pulled off 35%. It was still 137,000 people. And I was only in office for 4 years.
Wow.
We only raised about 510,000, which isn't that bad. So all things considered, I felt like we peaked late. So the night of the election, I felt like there was this huge like momentum coming towards me, but it was too late. Yeah, it came too late. And I'm not saying that if we had peaked earlier, I would have won. I just could feel that people were starting to, many people said the first time they ever heard about me was the night of the election. Yeah. Wow. They said they never knew who I was until they saw me on TV. Because I don't know if you remember, but they never really publicized Ige's The Kind because nothing was happening there. They were like showing that nobody was in the chairs. Like he would give his speech, go home, and we were still at the Blaisdell. So I think the amount of coverage I got that night on TV was more than I had ever had, and that message and that the way I presented myself is like what made more people gravitate towards me. And so I believe, you know, that it's building. You know, I ran for city council this year and it was evident that it was building when I won in the primary. I was able to get like 59% in a 5-way race. And so I know that the people of Hawaii are depending on me. And I know that I need to become that person. Now, whether or not I'm there yet, I don't know, but I know that I have to keep becoming the person that people need. Because I feel like the people of Hawaii deserve a leader that cares about them. I feel like generations of people in Hawaii are counting on me to do it. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but little by little, we're getting there.
That's amazing. Just in hearing, you know, just your spirit, you know, I think that resonates with a lot of people. And just this, the talk of becoming. How do you feel like, how are you going about becoming, I guess? And I guess it's just, you know, keeping your ear to the people, or, you know, and just knowing what they want, or, you know, I guess for you, like, yeah, what does that mean, or how does that look like, I guess, becoming?
It looks like taking a lot of lickings. That's what it looks like. It looks like falling on my face as many times as I need to so that I can learn. It looks like a lot of boots on the ground. Do work with your hands. Don't expect anyone to help you. Don't cry for yourself. Right. I mean, and that's kind of how my husband has been a strength to me. And I know people would kind of see that as a weakness, but like I remember one time when I was in the news a lot, because it was a very long story. It was almost every single day. And it was getting very overwhelming for me because a lot of people were attacking me. A lot of people were bashing me. And I came home crying, and Tavo was like, what? I was like, it's such a hard day. And he never said nothing. He just kind of stared at me, and then he kind of laughed. I was like, what are you laughing about?
Like, really?
Yeah. I was like, really? And he said, I have a question for you. Did anyone force you to run for office? I was like, no. He goes, did you choose to do this? I was like, yeah. He goes, then don't cry for yourself. You chose to do this. He said, you see anybody crying for me? He's like, you know, I'm an enforcement officer. Lots of bad stuff happened to us. I chose to do that, though. And it was such an empowering thing for me to think about, that I chose this path. So like, no matter how hard it is, like I choose to be here. Right. And no one can take that away from me. And because I choose to be here, then I need to understand that everything bad that's happening is supposed to make me better. So don't shy away from it. Don't try to lessen the pain, because it'll make you a stronger leader. It'll make you a stronger, potential governor for Hawaii. Is if I cannot handle small things like that, what makes me think I can handle running the state of Hawaii? So it's like all those lessons, you can't learn those in school though. And I have all these degrees. Like, you can't learn that crap. Like, you got to go and experience it. When thousands of people hate what you're doing and you still have to stand up and do it. When you have to, I don't know, in my community, I have to like stand in the middle of a road and direct traffic, and you just do it. I remember when I did that the first time, we had a water main break in Waianae. Okay, and this goes back to me not knowing any better. I didn't know what a state house rep was supposed to do. So I'm at church, I get a call. Everybody's like, Andrew, you got to get outside. Like, the water main broke and nobody can get out of Waianae. And I was thinking, like, what am I supposed to do about that? And I'm in a dress, I'm in church. So then my phone is just blowing up. So I just walk out of church and I'm like, what? They're like, you need to get out here now. I was like, okay, fine. So I leave church early. I take my kids home and I'm still in a dress. And then I realized like traffic is everywhere. So I borrowed my neighbor's bike. And so I go out there and I go straight to where the water main break thing is. And then I was like, oh crap, like this is bad. So there's this huge hole in the road. And I think people had been stuck in traffic for about 6 hours. Wow. So yeah, because they didn't know if they could actually divert traffic around it because it was such a huge hole. And then I just started directing traffic because I was like, well, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do, so I'll just try to be helpful. So I was trying to help people like navigate around the access roads we have in our community, and I was trying to tell the police officers what to do, and like, I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do, but I just did it. Right. And I was like on my bike, like trying to figure stuff out, and people were like taking pictures, and they're like, oh my gosh, our state house rep is helping us. And I was thinking like, isn't this what I'm supposed to do? Like, I thought I was supposed to do this. And it was fine, after a few days they were able to do it. But I remember thinking like, because I don't know, or I don't have like a motto, like I just make my own way, that I feel like that's kind of how I'm trying to become that leader. Just be unafraid and just do what you think you're supposed to do, and do it with your whole heart. Right. And then if people hate you, then it's okay. It's all right.
And I feel like that's how, we're meant to go through life, or we're supposed to go through life, is like blazing our own path. We're all our own individuals. We have our own strengths and weaknesses. And for us to model ourselves after someone else is, taking away from our talents, or taking away from, what we're supposed to be doing, because we're trying to follow somebody else's path, that they've created, or that has been already created. Whereas, me and you, each have our own individual talents, and just go ahead, just like you, just like, hey, Russia, figure it out as you go along. And just like you said, you have your core principles and your, what you've been taught by your parents, and you just go by those, principles, and you just go with your whole heart, and you do the best you can with what you have. And, at the end of the day, you just know that you've done the best you could. And for you to go out there and, in your dress and be like, oh, I thought this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. There's no real manual, or, like someone telling me how to do these things. So I think that's pretty cool. For you, what are some of the blessings that you've seen running for office, or not running for office, but like that have come from, serving people? Or maybe what was the moment where you're like, oh, this makes it all worth it for me?
I do like making an impact in the lives of people. I do a lot of community work. I do a young women's prom event where we gift prom dresses and we address domestic violence. I do an annual sex trafficking awareness conference. I do a emergency preparedness fair for my community. I do cleanups. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've created for my community to address whatever the issue is. Mm-hmm. I used to do back to school bashes. I feel like those times where I get to create something to address a need, that's like my favorite. Like, I'm kind of not the person that's going to be like, I'm going to go write a bill and I'm going to get $500,000 of CIP to fix the school. Like, I'm not that person. I'm the kind of person that I'm like, okay, how much can we help ourselves? Okay, how many people in this community care about what's going on? Okay, how can we make a collaborative product to address this? And because I'm a music teacher and a choir teacher, like I'm all for like blending voices. So I love bringing people together. And I can't really name like one moment, but I can think of a project that I still to this day I'm just so proud of. Right. We did a mural on the supermarket in Nanakuli, and it was just real simple. The grocery store owners, their wall was getting graffitied. They call me, they're like, Andrew, the vandalism's so bad, and you got to go and lobby and get more money for police so we can have more police presence, right? And I was like, okay, wait, you like me get more cops to look at the wall so that people don't draw on them? They were like, yeah. I was like, how about we just paint on it? They're like, what do you mean? I said, I mean, it's a blank wall. Like, I kind of want to draw on it. Like, it's just there,
Right.
Why don't we just change the energy of this space? Why don't we have the community take ownership over this wall by doing a community mural?
Right.
So they were like, oh, you think that's going to work? I was like, yep, I think it's going to work. And so they funded it. We didn't get any state funding for it. The grocery store owners paid for it. So it was 3,000 square feet. We did a day where the whole community came out. They brought their kids. Everyone had a part on the wall to paint. And yeah, it's still there. We did it in 2015. It hasn't been vandalized. And I think for me, those are the types of projects where I feel like, yes, because I mean, maybe in 15, 20 years, no one's going to know who did that,
Right.
which is fine. All I need people to know is that families in our community did that, and that's their wall.
Yeah.
And the kids who painted the fishes, they still remember what fish they painted, and that's theirs. And I think that's the beauty of how I lead, is like, I'm trying to help people take ownership over things, because I don't always need to be in charge. I do need to empower people to lead where they are.
Right.
And so I think those moments where I kind of just made it up and then it ended up being like super awesome. I'm like, yeah, we did it.
It worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. And on the same token, it just empowers the community and be like, hey, that's what we did, or we put our, and it's almost like beating the graffiti people to it, like, oh, let me paint, or the community paint on the wall before they get to it, and so I think that's a cool, the concept that you brought up. And so, and also just just listening to, your stories and listening to, how you're figuring it out. Just the strength of a woman, comes to mind. And so in saying that, who do you consider a strong woman, and do you consider yourself strong?
I do believe that my mother is a great example to me. She is definitely a driven individual. A lot of people say that we're a lot alike. I don't think so, but I think of, my grandmother, who was adopted, Leilani Bertelman, and the kind of life she had to live. She was raised by her aunt, and at a very young age, her mother passed away, and she ended up raising herself. Was it her mother or father? One of her parents was in and out of the hospital, abusive to the other one. And I just remember thinking, after hearing my grandmother's story, I mean, could I have made it out of that? I don't know. She drove her own mother home after she got beat up, and drove her to the hospital when she was 13. And then she stayed with her until she healed, and she just kind of lived on her own after that. And she lived 1985, 25 to 30 years after her husband died. She still lived in Pasadena. So, I consider those strength, and I consider the women in my family strong because, I don't know, if you know any Parkers, you know what I mean?
Yep, the Parker.
Very headstrong. Bertelmans are the same. So I think for me, strength is just, handling your business.
Yeah.
We all go through stuff, but to be able to endure your trials and become stronger through it, as a woman, as an individual, that's what makes your posterity strong.
Nice. And yeah, just the strength of a woman, I consider myself strong because strong women raised me. And, the strength of the village that I come from also, gives me strength. So with the governor, are you going to go back? Are you going to try again and run for governor? And is that in the next, 2 years or a couple years from now? Or
yeah, so
how does that work?
I just won the city council race in August.
Okay.
And my term is 4 years. And the night of the election, I did get a strong impression to be mindful of the stewardship that I've been given, be good to the people who are good to me,
Right.
and finish my term. And so the governor's race is in 2 years, and I am going to run for governor again, but not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the timing is not my timing.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be listening and preparing. Like, that's been a very strong impression that I get throughout this process, because everything's so foreign to me. Like, I still feel like politics is foreign to me.
Right.
Like, I've been in it 6 years and I'm still like, this is so strange. Like, but I do think that the timing of me understanding that I need to build those relationships, be able to raise that money, be able to garner that support so that I can run and win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that doesn't happen overnight, you know? You don't like learn how to play basketball and then like go to the NBA. Yeah.
Right.
So I realized that. I don't regret running though. I don't regret running in 2018. I think it was the right thing at the right time for people to understand that change was coming.
Right.
My slogan that year was "Our time is now." I was trying to get people to understand, like, we need to move now. Yeah, we need to start to mobilize now. We need to start to gather now. We need to start to understand, and what that process looks like as to how I educate, how I teach and prepare people for what's about to happen. I feel like that's why I was an educator instead of a lawyer.
Nice. So, what job did you get? Sorry. That you just got in August?
It's a city council.
City council.
Yeah.
So what does that mean, or how does that look, or what does that look like?
So in Hawaii, we have 4 counties, and one of the counties is the island of Oahu. So they call it the city and county of Honolulu. So we have a mayor that's for our island. And interestingly, like, our state is about 1.5 million people, but 1 million of those people live on Oahu. So you can tell the counties are kind of really off balance. So Oahu's county is actually, the city council member is even a larger area than a state rep and a state senator. It's way bigger than that. Yeah. So the area I represent now, when I get sworn in January, from Eva to Kaena Point, is 2 times the size of a senator's district. Yeah. So I represent 1/9 of the island of Oahu. And so that race is about city stuff: streets, trash, crime, homeless, anything that's like the everyday, like that's city stuff. So my direct, I guess, boss would be the mayor. The administration would be like the Department of Transportation Services. It would be like Department of Planning and Permitting. So the city does that kind of stuff. So a little different than what I was doing at the state.
Okay. And just in following you on social media, I've seen you been doing a lot of cleanups.
Aye.
And so there's a back road where you're from, or
many roads.
Yeah, where you clean up, and then also like with the cars, that's a big thing in Hawaii too. I think every time I go home into just driving along like Ka'ava area, there's always those cars on the side of the roads and stuff. And so I'm sure that with what you posted, there's some on those roads as well. But yeah, I think that's cool that you're already taking the initiative. Was that part of your job before, or was that just something that you just do just because you do it?
I'm pretty sure that everyone who's in office who represents areas around me must get so irritated with me, because they're like, Andria's always doing stuff she's not supposed to do. Like, so I don't necessarily think that cleanups are what a state house rep does, but I just wanted to do it and I just did it. Right. Then later I figured out that it was a lot of city stuff. And now I'm going to be a city council member. So yeah, I should probably be doing a more impactful cleanup. Although my cleanups are impactful, I'm not using any government resources. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine if I actually did? Because everything that I do is just the love of the community. Do you want to donate your truck? Do you want to drive on Saturday? Do you want to pick up trash? So I think if I was able to just, not take away the community portion, but add and augment my efforts and use city resources. I mean, I would hope that I could clean the whole island of Oahu in one shot. I even told the new mayor that just came in, I told him, I said, you want the island of Oahu clean? Like, I can do it. All you have to do is help me mobilize this. And he was like, you think you can do it? I was like, I know I can do it. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is tell me go. And like, I will organize it and I will take every abandoned car off this island. So, the city has some issues, with trash, with recycling. Yeah. We're on an island. So it's kind of a big deal that we learn how to reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, it's not a joke. It's like it should be a lifestyle.
Right.
Because you either burn that stuff or you try to ship it off the island, and it's just not as effective as it should be. So I did mention that to the incoming mayor. Like, it's an issue that you're going to have to handle, because if we don't do landfills better, if we don't do like some of our recycling facilities better, utilize some of the funds that are supposed to be used for cleanups, beautification, for recycling, like, this is not going to go away. You know, almost all the landfills throughout Hawaii are filled.
Right.
So like, let's be problem solvers instead of kick the can down the road, people, and just like, let's handle this. Right. So I'm kind of excited. Like, I'm super excited that he won last night, just because we need change.
Yeah. Especially with what's going on in Hawaii right now, you know, and so, yeah, I agree. And just what would your message be to the people of Hawaii, or especially the younger generation, the people who look up to you, you know, like especially the young girls, like, oh, Andrea's in there, you know, because all it takes is just that one person, right, that looks like you, or that like you can relate to, and so people looking up to you be like, oh, Andrea's there, so maybe I can do it too, you know. Maybe what are some thoughts for them, or something that, you know, if they're looking up to you, that you have for them?
I guess my message is pretty simple, is just be more of who you already are. You know, I think in life, we're always trying to be something, when you should just find out what your calling, what your purpose is, and then just live it to its full extent. You know, reach your full potential and make the biggest impact in the area you're supposed to. I don't necessarily think that everyone should run for office. Do I think more people should? Sure. But I do think that we need good people everywhere. In office, out of office, in the business world, in the education world, like we do. Right. We need people with the right principles, the right morals, the right values, the right mindset in every area of our lives. So be that person, you know, be that person that's intentional about who they are and about what their purpose is, and live it. Because I feel like there's so many parts that need to be played in order for us to get to where we need to go, and play your part well.
Nice. And yeah, just going back to what you're talking about with music, you know, everything is going to be harmonious. Yeah, like different, you know, you play your part, and at the end of the day, it all comes together. And so also in saying that, you know, with the rich culture that we have in our Polynesian, what do you feel like we have to offer the world?
I personally feel like there's a lot of potential, maybe untapped even potential in Polynesians, and I don't mean that because there's one specific field for us. You know, when my father became the first Samoan judge in the United States, I remember it was kind of a big deal, and I kept thinking, like, how come he's the first one? Not that it's a bad thing. I just thought, is this not common? Which I guess it's not, and I think that that's where people just need to become more of who they already are, right? Because if there wasn't a Polynesian filmmaker and then you are the one, then great. You know, if there wasn't a Polynesian, whatever, Microsoft analyst and you are the one, then great. Like, so I kind of feel like I would hope that, you know, we wouldn't limit ourselves to the paths that we currently see, you know, because if you only do what you've always done, you're only going to get what you've always gotten. Right. So don't limit yourself to that groove, that path that's cut. Like, cut the new path. Get hurt while you do it. And then hopefully what you do leaves a legacy for others behind you. So yeah, I just, there's so many things that I'm proud of in my culture and my family and from who I am and where I'm from. And I always try to teach that to my kids, you know, be proud of every part of who you are.
Man, that's powerful. And yeah, just thank you for, you know, just sharing that, because people need to hear it. And then not only people, but me, you know, like myself included. And in hearing that empowers me as well. Also, just something that I wanted to get into now that we're on the day after elections, and that's when we're recording this. Your thoughts on just what's going on, the whole climate of election and this whole year in general, I guess, and just such a crazy time to be alive. And, but at the same time, there's no other place or no better place to live than this country, just like you said, living in Venezuela, that wasn't something that you would want for yourself. And so at least the time that we have to choose, by going to the polls and voting and stuff like that, we're even continuing to wait for what's happening and who the president is. And can you share some of your thoughts and what's going on?
Sure. I think the word of the podcast is maybe choice. Choosing is such a powerful thing, and it was something given to us that empowers us, helps us to become who we need to be. And choosing somebody to run for office or voting for somebody, like, it's just amazing. And I guess maybe I'm just coming from this perspective of living out of the country. When you live out of the country and you see that choices are not as freely given, you're super grateful when you get to make choices, right? And so I personally feel like even though the elections get really contentious and people are angry, like, having that ability to choose is such a blessing. And no matter which way it goes, because everything is supposed to be for our benefit. Right. No matter if it comes our way, it doesn't come our way, it's still the right thing. It's still the way it was supposed to go. And then we have to learn what we were supposed to learn from that incident or that, example. So I remember there's a quote that I liked a lot that said, not voting is not a protest, it's a surrender, because you're given a choice and then you choose not to use it. So I'm a firm believer that engaging is part of our rights, and being active is part of our rights. And I'm not saying you got to go be like all political and start researching. Like, you can start from where you're at. I have some family members that text me, ask me about issues, and I feel like I don't know a lot, but they're like, no, you do. I'm like, well, I try my best to know a little, but you just start where you are, So I think the political climate is heavy right now, but again, like, I felt that shift coming a long time ago. When I felt it in 2010, I almost felt like it was about to happen, because I could feel it when I lived in Venezuela. I could feel that the political unrest was so big. Like, you could feel it in the street. You could feel it when protests broke out. There'd be days where they would break out in protest. People would be killing each other in the street. We'd have to stay in our apartment until they called us and said it was clear to leave. And that was in 2003. And look where Venezuela is, with a president who doesn't want to give up his seat, with a, I don't know what they call it, they're parliamentary, where they're trying to take over power, where there's people in the street who don't have jobs. Like, that never happened overnight. Yeah. So when I felt that in Venezuela, that feeling of what it feels like in society to have the unrest, like, I knew I needed to engage. Now, I didn't know it was going to lead up to where we are today. I had no idea that 2020 was going to be what it was. But at the same time, if it's your turn to step up and lead, then step up and lead. And then when the day is there where you're not supposed to be the leader, then leave it better than you found it.
Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah. I think just to end, with what we're going on, thank you for your thoughts on such a crazy time, and even as we speak, we're still waiting on the results of who the president is going to be, and so, just a crazy time. But just like you mentioned, choosing or choice is the, just the main focus of what we're, I think we're talking about. But I think, like, on a lighter, not that it's a lighter note, but something that's powerful that for us, and especially as Polynesians, our faith, just talk about just how, with everything that you've got going on in your life, just the anchor in your life of the gospel, and how that's helped, with you continuing to fulfill your passion, or, fulfilling your purpose, and just what it means, for you to have your testimony in the gospel.
Yeah. I think when I was about to go on my mission, which I did not want to go on a mission, my dad used to always tell me, like, there's people waiting for you, they're waiting to hear from you. And I kept thinking, like, yeah, right. There's so many other people that can give that message. And when I did go and when I did serve and when I did realize that I needed to be the one to do certain things or to share the gospel with certain families or whatever, I realized, how important it is that we know how impactful and how powerful our testimony, our actions, our lifestyle, everything that we are, how it reverberates through the world and affects other people. And I'm saying that because, like, why did a girl from Hawaii have to serve in Venezuela? Even when I got called, I was like, why in the heck am I going to South America? Like, what would I be doing there? Like, if I had not done that, would I have ever had my eyes open to political things? Never.
Right.
I would have never, because I would have never known what that was. And so, I think for me, when I decided to run for office, it wasn't a career decision for me, because I looked at it like helping people. Like, I'm not supposed to tell people what to do. I'm supposed to help them to do it for themselves. And that's kind of the way that I lead my community. Like, I don't want to do it for you, but I can help you do it for yourself. Right. So that one day when I'm not here, you don't need me, And so I think having that anchor of the gospel and of knowing about self-reliance and about how we have these gifts and talents that we're supposed to use, I realized that this is not a compartment of my life. My life is one comprehensive whole. I'm not supposed to be a Christian on Sunday. Right. I'm not supposed to be a Mormon when I'm serving when I'm serving in Venezuela. I'm just supposed to be me all the time, everywhere I go. This is in a hearing at the Capitol. This is in the street when I'm cleaning. I'm supposed to be the same person. And so I have felt so grateful that I have that foundation that my parents gave me, because, if I didn't, in the world that we live in today, would I still want to run for office? Right? Because who the heck wants to be a leader now? Like, it's just so polarizing. It's so, there's just so much divisiveness. So I think, as I serve the people, and I try to do it out of the love that I have for them, not out of the obligation because of an office that I won, not because of a job role that I'm trying to fulfill, but out of the love that I have for my fellow beings, for the brothers and sisters I have in my community. And I can't say enough about how good the people of Waianae are to me. I am not from Waianae. Tavo's not from Waianae. Yeah. The people of Waianae are so good to me. They're so good to my family. They're such good people. I don't know if I would have been the leader I am today if I didn't have a community that was so loving. And I remember one of the town halls that I was holding, some auntie came up to me, Andrea, are we starting the town hall? I was like, yeah. You never even say prayer yet. I was like, oh, we're supposed to say prayer at the town hall. And I feel like I can be myself in my community. Just this past Monday, I got invited by one of the private schools in Waianae because the 9th graders wanted to pray for me. So I was like, yeah, like in my head, I thought, any kind. Yeah, right. Sure. Like, you can pray for me. Oh my goodness. I was crying so hard because these kids in the community, they know my name. Everywhere I go, they know my name. They're like, we want to pray for Andria Tupola because she's helping our community. And I'm just so grateful that there's so many strong believers in my community that pray for me. Mm-hmm. And their kids pray for me. Because it's not always easy to speak out. It's not always easy to be different. And it just feels good to represent a community that is okay with who I am. Right. They're okay that sometimes I clean the street. And I don't always want to wear dresses ever. So I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for my testimony, and I'm grateful that things are playing out the way they are so that I can share my love of my Savior with others.
Man, that's a powerful testimony to, the strength of the village is a child. Yeah. And then for the child, the strength of the child is the village. And so I feel like that's what you have around you. But in saying that, just, man, your purpose seems so clear. And then just trying to fulfill that purpose, I think is, what you're trying to model your life, or, trying to live your life to fulfill that purpose. And that purpose is just serving your community, serving your fellow man. Yeah. So, man, that's powerful. In saying that, we'll just end with just some questions to get to know you. It's just some rapid fire questions. So the first thing that comes to mind, just go ahead and share that with us. So what takes up too much of your time?
Work. I work a lot.
What do you wish you knew more about?
Tongue and language.
What or who inspires you?
My father.
What are some things you had to unlearn?
My attitude.
What's your favorite book?
Besides the scriptures, I do like Stephen Covey's Speed of Trust.
Nice. What's special about the place you grew up?
Well, the place I grew up was Hawaii. What's special about it? It's the only place of its kind.
Right. What have you only recently formed an opinion about?
Probably politics.
Right. What's the luckiest thing that's happened to you?
Meeting my husband.
All right. Shout out Tavo. What song will guarantee to make you dance?
Ooh. Probably Real Love, Mary J. Blige.
What are you most looking forward to in the next 10 years?
Leading the people of Hawaii.
What could you give a 40-minute presentation on with no preparation?
Oh, leadership, hands down.
What hobby would you get into if time and money weren't an issue?
Hip-hop dancing.
Nice. When people come to you for help, what do they usually need help with?
Fixing problems in the community.
What's something you think everyone should do at least once in their life?
Jump off a cliff into the ocean. I like to cliff jump.
What helps you live in the moment?
Music. Yeah.
And which of your scars has the best story behind it?
Oh, the scar on my eye. I got hit in the eye with a bat.
Whoa.
When I was in 8th grade.
Was it like playing baseball, or was it like a malicious, like somebody coming after you with the bat?
Intramurals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no more the backstop, and the guy who swung the bat just let it fly, and then boom, and then my eye ripped open. So.
Oh, if you could get back to your village, how or what would you do?
Give back, you said?
Yeah.
Maybe create a music school.
Nice. Who's one stranger you still remember?
Randomly, I'll just say this guy that was my campaign manager when I ran for BYU student government. He was definitely a stranger, but we're good friends now.
Nice. Well, that's all the questions I got for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again for sharing, your knowledge, your mana'o, and just your life story, just that I feel like your story is powerful and it'll resonate with other people, and I'm sure that they will find it inspiring, and you can help motivate some other people as well. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us and doing that for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Village Made podcast. Just so you know, our stories are powerful, and in sharing our stories, it takes a village to raise a child, and so the village is our strength, and the strength of the child is the village.